Hey guys, what's up? What's going on? Mike here with the weekly intro to the podcast, wishing you a very happy Thanksgiving. If you're hiding from your family right now listening to this, be strong. You can do this. It's only a few more hours. So I haven't spoken to you guys personally since it came out, but Goldfingers finally dropped last week. And if this is your first time hearing about it, Goldfingers is a data-driven Oscar prediction video series hosted by me, Mike King. In the first episode, I properly introduce the series and make my first predictions for the Best Documentary Feature category at the 91st Academy Awards. It's only 9 minutes long, so you can easily catch up just in time for a new episode next week to update the Best Documentary Feature predictions. It's still early, so that's really all we have right now, but trust me, things will really heat up in December and January, so make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel now. Just search How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up on YouTube, or find a direct link on our website, howmanyfingerspodcast.com. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, this week we're reviewing the brutal acid-driven revenge film Mandy. Joining us via Skype was a great friend of the podcast, Nick Aucello, so that's why we're wearing those big-ass headphones if you're watching this on YouTube, or why we might sound like your grandparents yelling into the telephone if you're listening.
Huh? What?
Anyway, check out our review of Bohemian Rhapsody last week, and stay tuned for our review of First Man next week. But for now, happy Thanksgiving, and here's our drunken review of Mandy featuring Nick Aucello. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Mike.
And you're listening to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? The podcast. And this week we'll be reviewing Mandy.
More?
More what? Hey everyone, and welcome to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up, featuring two guys getting wazzed and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
And thank you, Valeria Morales, on Facebook for that synonym suggestion. I reached out to her for comment on how that's pronounced, and she said exactly how it sounds. So I think you did a fine job, Joe.
I think I did too.
And if you have any further synonym suggestions, you can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Tumblr, email. Anywhere you can get in contact with us, we'd love to get your synonyms on the podcast.
Just out of curiosity, how many people hit you up on Tumblr?
Nobody.
Not a lot.
We have some followers on there, but nobody messages us besides with like links to stuff that's not related to us,
Right.
like spam links and shit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let us introduce the voice that you're hearing now, and if you're watching on video, the floating square video that's betwixt us.
Oh, is he recording video?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Hey guys, I'm a computer. I moved to Hollywood to become a computer.
Back on the podcast for the 7th time, Nick Aucello, aka Tumbledore.
Hey.
Good to be back.
Welcome back. Yeah, so you've been on the Star Wars episode 7, The Force Awakens.
7, like how many episodes I've been on.
Yes.
Oh,
the night
synchronicity.
The night before, Green Room, Ghostbusters, Hacksaw Ridge, and The Mummy.
Which is just a wild group of movies.
A lot of shitty movies.
It's a wild
I
ride.
love being on the shitty movies, though. I think I was listening to an older episode of you guys talking about how the shitty movies are just a little bit more fun to talk about.
Oh, definitely.
And I completely agree.
Yeah.
Just ripping on those shitty ass movies. I mean, 2 of those are good. Force Awakens is like one of the top movies on this podcast ever.
Definitely.
Oh,
Right.
easily.
And then Green Room, obviously nothing but good things to say about that movie.
I love Green Room.
Yeah. Green Room.
Have you guys heard of Green Room?
I'm sorry if this podcast sounds a little stunted. We're doing a Skype episode, which we don't normally do. I usually fight heavily against it just because it makes it harder in the editing
Our
process.
second Skype
The other
episode
one
ever.
being Tequila Apocalypse, the X-Men Apocalypse
third.
episode.
We did
10 Cloverfield Lane,
yeah.
which went for like 3 hours.
Well, if
Which I listened to
Apocalypse.
before I actually saw 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Oh.
But yeah, so like if you're watching on video, Joe and I have got the big can headphones on so that we can hear Nick through the Skype application. It's kind of nice being able to hear my own voice.
It is. I
always hear people talking about that on podcasts, like, oh, turn my voice up in the cans or whatever.
Right.
So it's kind of nice. We got nice voices. It's nice to hear ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like I'm listening to the finished product.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice,
It's
nice
great.
and crisp audio quality. But Nick, you are of course a Twitch streamer. Do you want to plug some of that Twitch streaming?
I got some plugs. I stream currently on twitch.tv/TumbleLovesYou. Just got back into it. Got back from TwitchCon the other week. Went to San Jose.
What was that like?
I drank a lot. I went to, so there's this app called Discord. I'm sure most people are familiar with. We went to the Discord party the first night, and it was an open bar. So, you know, Daddy's gonna get lit.
Like Discord hosted, like the app hosted
Discord,
the party.
Yeah, it was Discord staff. They invited all the partners. My friend. So I was on the guest list, but I never got my email. So there was a little bit of drama with me getting in, but it ended up being just going by so smoothly. We went straight to the open bars. We just drove from LA to San Jose, and we're there within 2 hours. And we had a lunch, I think, at 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. So I had nothing in my stomach for the whole night besides a shitty Denny's sandwich and a ton of alcohol. And by the end of the night, I just kept on introducing myself as Ninja from Fortnite to other people. Which is not the greatest for networking, but I was cracking myself up.
Did anybody buy it at TwitchCon or?
No.
Did anybody at TwitchCon not
believe you?
Not know what Ninja looks like?
It was literally a shrine. Ninja had a bang bus, like a straight up bus with his name on it, where he was selling merch. So it was pretty hard to. It was pretty easy to be like, "Hey, I don't think you're actually Ninja from Fortnite."
Did you meet Minecraft when you were there? Was Minecraft there?
Hi, I'm Mr. Fortnite.
What is Minecraft like in real life?
Yeah. Besides that, I guess I perform a little bit of comedy in LA. Yeah. So guys, if you're around UCB LA, I don't know, I live right by you if you want to grab a beer.
If you're around UCB LA, seek cover because the fire is coming for you right now.
Seek cover. But yeah, I'm not performing there. But you know, I live nearby if you want to grab a pizza or something.
Get a pizza.
Yeah, but currently LA is on fire. There's visible smoke around everywhere.
Ew.
Yeah, not great. Smells like a barbecue of nature, I guess.
Nature's barbecue. Well, stay safe, please. During this episode, finish the episode at least.
Yeah, I'll go until I see the flames.
Listen, I know the fire's dangerous, but I really want you to stick through for this episode. So
it's getting hot in here, boys. All right, it's only at my front door. We have a good hour left.
So this week we're drinking Modelo. I think we're drinking. Is this just the base Modelo?
Yeah.
Or are we drinking the Modelo Especial?
This is the base Modelo, but every Modelo is not Especial. Especiale, this one. It's a very salty tasting beer. I said this before. It tastes like Narragansett, which I always describe as I think
salty.
something's wrong with your taste buds, Mike. I think Mike's having a stroke. And everything smells like firewood.
It's a barbecue in your mouth. No, like it's almost like a savory taste rather than like a weedy, grainy type taste. You know what I mean?
It's definitely that Mexican kind of cerveza.
They use it for micheladas a lot, so that does make sense with it being more savory.
What is a michelada?
Oh, it's just really I like it. A lot of people, they put like tomato juice inside the beer, and they put some lime in, and rim the cup with salt. I personally like it with hot sauce better, like Frank's Red Hot.
That sounds like something I'd be into.
It's really good.
Love me a Bloody
I suggested
Mary.
this beer because
It's what you had.
it's what I had, but I made a
what's going
mistake. So Tecate was the one I actually had plenty of. But we did have my roommates threw a party a few weeks ago while I was at TwitchCon, and they left a bunch of the beer outside. Yeah, it was a Nick's Gone Halloween party. Everybody said it was the best party we've ever had. They're just like, something was different this time.
It's like
Something was missing, and it was great.
It was great.
But we did have Modelo's, but it was outside. Just this beer, the Modelo's we had has been sitting outside for 2 weeks. So that's what I'm drinking right now. It has a very
even more savory.
Tastes good.
it has a stench to it, that's for sure.
Tastes like a skunk barbecue.
Skunk is a good word to describe it, but I'll drink it for the pod.
All right. Let's get into Mandy. You guys want to talk about Mandy a little bit?
Nah.
Let's talk about TwitchCon more. Joe, give me the IMDb description, and then I'm going to give you my mic notes for the film Mandy.
I would love to. I stuttered a little over those first few words. The enchanted lives of a couple in a secluded forest are brutally shattered by a nightmarish hippie cult and their demon biker henchmen, propelling a man into a spiraling, surreal rampage of vengeance.
Oh boy. All right.
Wow.
Pretty accurate.
So Mandy was directed by Panos Cosmatos with a screenplay by Panos and Aaron Stewart-ahn. Panos has previously written and directed Beyond the Black Rainbow, which is a film he made by financing it through DVD residuals from his father's film Tombstone, which
Yes.
I think he was like in the like audio or something department for Tombstone. But just kind of funny that he financed it that way. And then this is Aaron Stewart-ahn's first script. He's got like a lot of stuff on his IMDb just in like random credits and whatnot, but he directed and shot the music video for I Will Possess Your Heart by Death Cab for Cutie, and he's been involved in various capacities in a ton of other shorts, documentary shorts. I think he did something for, oh God, what's the movie? Completely blanking on it. He like behind the scenes footage for like DVD, extra special features and stuff like that. Other than that, it was one of the last films composed by Johan Johansson. I think it's the last one to be released. But I think he started working on the Christopher Robin score after this and obviously couldn't finish it.
Which I met the guy who filled in.
Oh, really?
He wrote the score in less than 2 weeks. I think 11 days after
Jeez.
Johan Johansson died.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine this being like an indie movie, they probably took a lot more time to make a movie like this. Whereas like Christopher Robin, as a studio movie, they're like, all right, let's go.
Push it out.
Oh, Disney is a
there.
machine.
Right. They like pushed Johan Johansson's like cocaine overdosed body like out of the car, and they were like, we gotta make it to Disney World, baby. And they like fucking kept fucking
Picked up two hitchhikers
going
on the
down.
highway
Yeah,
to compose the score.
Can you write this?
Do you think he overdosed on cocaine because he was just getting in character to write music
Yes.
for this fucking movie?
For Christopher Robin. It's the only way he could deal with it.
Man, I've got to really feel what Christopher Robin is feeling.
Time to push the limits, baby.
We're under fire!
We need reinforcements.
Take it to the limits.
Rest in peace, Johan. And then other than that, the premiered at Sundance 2018 in January of 2018, obviously. And with that, let's talk about Mandy.
Yeah.
Have either of you seen his first movie, Beyond the Black Rainbow?
I have not. Have you?
Yes, I have. This is like a more comprehensive version of Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Oh boy.
In what context
so-
did you see that? Did you watch that after this, or you had seen it before?
Oh, I've seen it before. It was recommended. I listened to this other podcast.
What?
Plug them. They're very popular horror podcasts. I'm sorry, guys. I cheat on you.
Son of a bitch!
They might rhyme with Smash Podcast on the left. But they recommended, they kept on talking about Beyond the Black Rainbow. If you want to watch something visually gorgeous that has absolutely no plot at all, just watch it. So I did. Wasn't great.
No. Is it like a more of a horror type thing, or?
It's a horror. Yeah, it's kind of just a more, I wouldn't say more extreme, just even more acidy than this movie, if it's possible.
In this movie, where acid is like a huge part of the plot of this movie.
Right.
It is a plot detail. Those bikers.
Yeah, I haven't
boy.
heard much about the other movie besides I think I watched the Red Letter Media review of this film, and I think Jay, who recommended they did this, Mike was not into this movie at all. But Jay said he liked that better than this, but that this was pretty good. So I'd definitely be interested in watching it, seeing what it was about, just because I like this movie.
Oh, it's worth it. It's worth a check out. And I'm just going to go out and say I fucking love this movie.
Oh, right, yeah.
This movie is bananas.
It truly is. So, I mean, let's talk about this film has a phenomenal trailer, almost to its detriment, because this trailer is almost just better than this movie, and I say that with the highest respects of this movie. But this is just a fucking fantastic trailer.
Well, yeah, like it's combining like all like the greatest hits of this movie. It's making the movie seem way more like action packed than it is. Like even like that like IMDb description that you were reading, Joe, where it's like their lives are brutally shattered by a nightmarish hippie cult and their demon biker henchmen propelling a man into a spiraling surreal rampage of vengeance. Like that doesn't really capture how fucking slow this movie is, and that's not necessarily to criticize the movie, but this
is two different movies almost.
Yeah.
And like the trailer makes it out like it's gonna be like Nick Cage just can't stop fucking killing people in crazy ways.
Right.
It's like leaving out the fact that there's like 15 minutes in between like every death of just like slow zoom wide shots of like landscape and other stuff like that.
Or even just the entire beginning. The entire beginning's very slow. Yeah.
He doesn't kill anybody till halfway through the movie.
Right.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I'm not totally on board with the first half of this movie. So I mean,
my girlfriend, I watched it with my girlfriend. She fell asleep in the first half.
I can't totally blame her. There's hardly any dialogue. When there is dialogue, it's like like bedroom voices and whatnot. So like you open on like I guess like Nick Cage like being like a logger in the forest and cutting stuff down, which is kind of weird because that's like they're sort of presenting him and like Mandy as being like these people who like care about like animals and stuff like that, and it's like but he's like taking down the forest like even though they like want to live like this like secluded life like in a forest, he's just I think it was just a tool for them to make him familiar with a chainsaw in this movie, but it's kind of a weird choice.
He's like the this
he's
film
like the villain in Fern Gully.
That's literally what I was about to say.
Even though it's like a
Fern Gully.
So like you have him explain that he's like a logger, and Mandy is just kind of like at home working on her art, and it's just like all so slow in this movie, and like I don't even know if I want to criticize it for that because slow can work, but it's like a literal slowness to this movie. Like you can look at a movie like The Witch or Hereditary or other movies that have been like described as being like a slow burn, where stuff's happening, but it's maybe not like, as prominent or forefront to like the plot of the movie, and it's more about creating a theme and an atmosphere. Whereas this is like literally slow motion shots, and like the music is just this like slow droning like boom.
It's very quiet too.
Boom. And and like it's everything is just literally taking forever to do things that we could do much quicker if we were concerned about it. And
It's
again,
almost
it's
like
not
the
necessarily
Red
No,
Red
go
Dead
on.
Redemption of movies.
How?
In terms of taking it. In fact, like Red Dead Redemption, the character Nicolas Cage is named Red.
Red.
But yeah, it really does take its time.
Yeah.
And unlike you mentioned The Witch, where even though it's a slow burn, a big thing happens in the beginning to make you be like, oh shit.
That's true, yeah.
There's not really that.
And
in the
Hereditary,
beginning of
there's
this
something
movie.
within the first like 20 minutes to half an hour in Hereditary too. Yeah, this is like a while before. Like a lot of it is just kind of like I'm fueled by like the reviews I've read of this movie that are like it gets crazy intense and like the trailer, but like a lot of that doesn't come until much later in this movie.
The
Like,
quotes in the trailer are like ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're like, Nicolas Cage has lived up until this point to perform in this movie.
it's a fucking cocaine as a movie.
Uncompromising. It was just like, that was like a one-word review of this movie.
Nicolas Cage has never been better. I mean, he says like 5 words in the
Yeah,
whole
which
movie.
I could kind of disagree with, but like,
yeah,
he's,
I mean,
he's
I
good.
Yeah, that's not to criticize him at all.
Right.
I can put up a ton of better Nick Cage roles because I'm a Nick Cage apologist who
Same.
Right.
I'm just waiting for him to pay off those tax dollars so that he can get back to
man.
picking good movies to
I
work
think
on.
that's just a cycle that's he's just gonna go on till he dies.
He's just spending everything he
Right.
makes.
He's been in
been
a
in-
good year. He also did Mom and Dad this year, which was a pretty good movie.
Was that really a good movie?
I enjoyed it. Maybe it's not a good movie. It's an enjoyable movie.
Is that the one where all the parents in the world go crazy and try to kill their children?
Absolutely, it is.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. No. I mean, I haven't seen
Well, look,
that.
he's been in like some of my like favorite movies of all time, like Lord
Wicker
of
Man.
The Wicker Man, yes. The Rock, yeah. No, like The Weatherman, I really, really enjoy. Lord of War is one of my favorite, like, not that it's really like a truly accurate biopic, but like biopic type format movies. Lord of War is one of my favorites.
Right.
Family Man is one of my favorite, like, sort of romantic comedy type movies.
Yeah.
That he's in, and he's great. And then like I think people forget that he was fantastic in like Kick-Ass as like the dad of whatever Hit Girl
Oh,
or whatever the
yeah.
character is.
Yeah.
Kick-Ass
Big
2,
Daddy.
obviously. Oh, I was gonna say no, he's not in Big Daddy.
No, that's the character's name.
You're thinking of
the
Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was great in Happy Gilmore too. Click made me cry. The ending of Click when Nicolas Cage died.
He's been in a lot, and like even if you look at like one of the movies that people like to make fun of him for, but like the National Treasure, I guess they never did National Treasure 3. But the 2 National Treasure movies, like those are just great blockbuster,
Oh,
fun
definitely.
adventure movies. Like you could like teach those in a class for like how to write an adventure script for a movie, you know. But because there happens to be sort of funny lines of like I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence, people like to make fun of those and point those out as like bad Nicolas Cage movies.
Right.
I remember the first Nicolas Cage movie I saw was Moonstruck, which is about a 20-year-old Nicolas Cage banging like a 45-year-old Cher.
Yeah.
And the main theme of it is that song like when the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie.
That's
And
amore.
apparently when I was young, I hated that song so much I would run out dramatically from the room when that movie was on screaming.
Because of that movie, or
Because of that movie.
Oh,
So I
okay,
had a
you're
little
right.
bit of Nicolas Cage PTSD growing up.
okay, that's fair enough. But yeah, let's talk about Mandy, because I mean we have this kind of slow, almost unrelated beginning, and then it kind of goes into a revenge film.
Yeah.
Which I mean, to say it's thin on plot is pretty accurate.
Very.
and that's fine. But it is kind of like this kind of John Wick on an acid trip kind of movie.
I think I could forgive the beginning if they tried to tie it into
if there
the
was
rest,
something more meaningful that happened,
and if they tried to tie it into the rest of the movie, but they kind of failed to do that on almost every level. So like he comes home and Mandy's like drawing in like this pretty cool art style that is like, you know, something you would draw for like the cover of like a, you know, like an 80s or 90s like metal album or something.
Yeah.
You know? Like just like really good like metal archetypes of like, you know, panthers and tigers and skulls and demons and fantasy and all this cool stuff. And then later in the no, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say a lot of the film visually later on, especially, mimics that art style.
The actual filmed parts of the movie do, but the point I want to make is that when they show like cartoon drawings later in the movie where he's having these dreams, which I even like that theme of like he, you know, sometimes at one point even goes to sleep like on purpose to try to like let her speak to him through his dreams. It's not drawn in that style. It's almost like an anime or like I remember like the music video for Breaking the Habit by Linkin Park was drawn in that like American almost anime type style. And it's like, why wouldn't they have those things animated in a matching style to the art that she was drawing? Like, especially like, because they make such a big deal of him like really appreciating the art and being like, wow, that's great.
It was, I guess it was a director's choice. I actually recently read the animated sequences were an homage to the movie Heavy Metal, which would have came out around the same time
but then make her draw like that in the beginning.
Yeah, no,
just match
I
the
agree.
two.
It really doesn't
make
make sense in the context of the movie.
It's just like one little thing they could have done to tie things together. And then like they have, like it seems like there's something to do with her, like she is retelling this like flashback of like the Starlings where her father made all the neighborhood kids beat these baby birds in like a pillowcase. But then when she has this like weird vision where she walks up on like a dead animal that's like a baby animal, it's like a deer or something like that, or maybe just some fantastical, it's weird looking. Like just either make the story be about killing baby deer or make that animal be baby birds that she's like. There's just so many elements where like they could have tied things together to make this feel like a more cohesive film, where otherwise it just kind of feels like random threads in the first half of this movie where they're kind of just killing time until it turns into Nicolas Cage's acid revenge trip.
Right. If it was a little more revenge driven, I think I would have, I don't know.
Like I was almost waiting because they had, even like if you're going to have those two threads be separate where like she goes and she sees the baby deer and then she's retelling the story of the Starlings, and it's obviously like a pivotal moment from her childhood that she's kind of affected by. I was half expecting the like cult that captures her to lure her in with some kind of like dead animal of some kind. You know, like put something on the road that she goes for and then they snag her or something. But instead they like summon this like demon biker army thing, which is cool. I like that aesthetically. But again, I wanted more of this movie to tie together and mean something as a whole rather than just be a collection of really, admittedly, fucking really cool scenes. But
I also can't believe that when he gets revenge, he like fights like the most intimidating people first.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, I'm gonna start with the inhuman like fucking
the people who got hired to do the job, and then I'm gonna kill the people who hired them.
Right. Then I'm gonna
I mean, I know that it there's more emotional weight in him killing the cult.
Oh yeah, of course,
But spoiler alert. I mean, I think everyone knows how this movie goes.
Right. Yeah, it's also kind of like, I mean, if we're in spoiler territory, it's kind of like I'm not crazy about the scene where they kill her.
Yeah.
Mandy.
I have huge issues with that.
They put her in a bag and she's completely limp, like not doing anything, and then maybe she's unconscious, and obviously she's on fucking drugs of all sorts.
And wasp stinks.
Right. Yeah, that was weird. And then they like light her on fire, and then she starts to wriggle around, but then like it kind of just cuts to an audio track, and it's one of those things where I was like, oh, well, like I can't hear her scream. I don't know for sure that that's her. You know, I was just like, I wanted this movie to be less straightforward than it actually was.
That was my biggest complaint with this was seeing that scene because they didn't show her face,
right.
and because how much the Jeremiah like cult leader character had been obsessed with her and been like, I need her. I thought that this was going to be some kind of trick they were using in some way to just sort of torture Nicolas Cage's character for being like the object of her affections, where they were going to pretend to kill her in front of him and she was going to be burnt to a crisp and he wouldn't be able to recognize her, not realizing that he would go on this revenge trip. And then I thought at the end of the movie he was actually going to get her back.
Right.
Because I was waiting for this movie to like subvert my expectations so many times. And that would be sort of a subversion where so many times we've seen like this revenge movie before where they killed someone you love and he's just going to go and kill everyone else. And then that's it. But like, would that not be like a much greater ending or subversion of this movie to like go kill all those people and then he's like, oh fuck, like you're actually alive, and have an actual happy ending to one of these like revenge driven movies, or especially with all like the fairy tale themes in this movie,
or like a single kink, you know, like a single twist that happens.
That's not what I thought you meant by kink.
No, and there's
I mean, there's a lot of
a single fetish.
A single fetish in this. Would it kill them?
Did you see
all that leather and no BDSM?
But yeah, it was weird. It was I don't know. It was just Go ahead.
I'm really confused as to why. Okay, so we have the not Marilyn Manson, just the Charles Manson type obsessed with Mandy for, I guess, 24 hours. She laughs at his shitty music once and decides he's going to torture Nicolas Cage by burning her alive. You would think if he was that obsessed and more revenge driven, the cult would kill Nicolas Cage in front of her.
Well, I think they thought they were killing him because they stab him with the one special knife thing, which
I guess like,
what does that really mean? I mean, he should have died. I mean, he sustained a lot of damage, and they stabbed him, you know, in the innards with what they thought was like a mystic knife. I don't know if it didn't actually have the powers they thought it did.
Right.
Or whatnot. I also, just a side note, because I love the cinematography in this movie, obviously. But I hate the two singular shots of when they have these like mythic items that they're holding.
It's like a green strobe light.
And, the green strobe light going off, where it's like it just looks like a student film at those times. Like I'm even okay with like sort of like the strobe aspect of it or the green aspect on its own, but using both of those together, it literally looks like, all right, let's put a green filter in front of a strobe light that we bought for like $10 at like Radio Shack or something.
Oh yeah,
and put it in here.
Again, not defending the movie for that choice. It was another reference to heavy metal because there's a big thing with the whole. There's no plot to heavy metal besides the fact that there's this green thing that travels through each of the stories, and I got what they were going for, but it is like it's like a student film decided, we're gonna put this homage in to try to make it more self-important.
Like that would have been okay maybe if they made the ambiance of the scene that those little one shots are taking place in fit that, but like there's no green in those scenes, and then you cut to those one shots and there's green completely enveloping the scene, and then you cut back to, you know, the rest of the scene and the green's completely gone again. Like if they made some sense of where that green light was coming from besides Panos's fandom for heavy metal, then I might be more forgiving of it. But I do love the cinematography in the rest of this movie, obviously. I think they do a lot of just really cool stuff with, even as much as I criticize like the slow nature of this movie, it does look cool. Just all the slow shots. Like one of my favorite shots is Mandy walking down the road when the cult sees her, where like they even do some cool stuff in post where they make it look like she's walking out of like a metal album like artwork, where there's like smoke behind her and she's just kind of like this silhouette, and then the smoke dissipates and we see that it's this like forest country road, and then we can see like the headlights vaguely in the distance, and it's just got that huge like red wash over everything. Just really cool looking. I really loved the first like acid tripping sequence, where they force the acid on her at the cult, and she's tripping on acid while meeting the other members of the cult. I loved that, like the almost like 3D look of like the red and blue tones that are kind of not quite coalescing, of like the different washes over the film. I love like the one scene where she's like looking at Jeremiah right in the eyes, and it starts like morphing in and out of her face at the same time while he's talking. And like,
yeah, I do like that scene.
There's a lot of stuff with that where like I felt like the camera was putting me in the shoes of someone who was like tripping the fuck out on acid, where like you're starting to see yourself in someone else's face. There's a lot of cool choices I thought made in that aspect.
You could see it with just the coloring of each scene. Just the colors, it pretty much whenever they were on acid, it was like a solidifying color throughout that was very distinct from when they weren't tripping.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the car scene emphasizes that the most, because when you're in her point of view, it's relatively bright, not really normal, but looks almost like fantasy-esque. And then when you switch to the Manson crew, I'm just going to refer to them as the Manson crew. It's that red glow that pops up later when Nicolas Cage and Mandy both end up doing the acid. It's almost like you're slipping in and out of different characters' POV, and you could tell that by their state of mind.
Yeah, and the color.
Right.
So there's a tone to this movie that I thought it was going to have based on like the sort of outside reception of this movie. Like it gained like a huge cult following, despite not having like a huge, really wide release at all. And part of it was like this whole character of the Cheddar Goblin that like they created like a Twitter account for it, and like he would be like commenting on like current events just as the character of the Cheddar Goblin. And like I was really excited for him to show up in this movie because the Twitter account was funny, and people who had seen the movie seemed to appreciate the Twitter account a lot. So I was like, okay, this is going to be like a bigger part of it, or at least that style of humor is going to be a bigger part of this movie. And I felt like this movie was kind of lacking on that kind of humor, as much as I liked the scene that the Cheddar Goblin shows up in, because it's a very humorous, just commercial in and of itself. Like, you know, like the Cheddar Goblin mascot is like vomiting mac and cheese all over these kids to like a ridiculous degree. And then I like it in the movie where it's like Nick Cage's character Red is like coming in from witnessing just this awful thing, like destruction of like everything that he's cared about, and it's just like it really paints that surreal picture of like coming in and seeing something on the TV as ridiculous as Cheddar Goblin, and he even just says out loud like, "Huh, Cheddar Goblin," and goes about, and like
the universe doesn't care about like what you're going through, right?
And there's something funny but also like deep and emotional and like kind of really touching about that scene, and I wanted there to be more of that in this movie
type of humor, not necessarily Cheddar Goblin, but
it touches on it at like the only other part that I can really think that touches on it is when he goes to like the demon biker gangs. He gets captured by them and he's at their lair and he's trying to break his way out, and there's like the one scene where the one guy like slices his shirt and he like makes note of it, and then
I don't like that scene.
Well, that part, not that part in particular shirt. But then when he is fighting them later, when that guy like comes back, he just starts screaming like, "You ripped my shirt! You ripped my shirt!" And there's something about that like it's sort of humorous on like a surface level because it's a ridiculous thing to say, but it almost ends up being like super realist, because it's like if you were on this like revenge driven quest where like nothing fucking mattered anymore, like you wouldn't be shouting like, you know, like action, like one-liners, like, and that's why, you know, fucking, you don't do whatever. Like, you'd just be shouting whatever the fuck came to mind because nothing matters. And it's just whatever happens to be on your mind at that point. So there's something about that I really appreciated. And it was also funny. But then there's like not really a whole lot of other humor in this movie. And I think that maybe is just a marketing defect.
Yeah,
where it was marketed between the Cheddar Goblin Twitter account and like the trailer definitely makes it seem like it's going to be a more like tongue-in-cheek type like revenge movie, and it's not really that. It's kind of super self-serious for most of it.
The first thing I heard about this movie was the Cheddar Goblin. So I was going into this because I don't watch trailers for movies before I watch them. I watched the trailer just an hour ago for the first time. So I was kind of expecting this to be a just really dark comedy filled with weird creatures like the Cheddar Goblin and everything. And it was not that at all. So yeah, completely agree with just going in expecting this movie to be completely different tonally and really not seeing that humor outside of, maybe 2 instances.
Like it really is. It's like an expertly cut trailer where like they find parts of the dialogue that aren't even funny in the movie,
right,
and make them funny in the trailer. Like when he's like explaining to the one guy in the trailer who gives him the gun, and he's like, this like Jesus cult, and they're just pure evil, and like his performance in the trailer is funny, but in like the context of the movie, it's not really a funny scene. It's just kind of him expressing actual anguish.
Yeah,
I don't want to start like a whole other like silence and how many boats or boat scenes were there, but maybe I think this might just be me, but was anybody else confused by like any time they were inside of a house you didn't really know what house that was? Like it was just like let me start you off by like just Mandy dies. He can barely crawl towards her like kind of like ashy kind of grave, and then after he sees like what is like an ash that's shaped basically like her head blow away in the wind, he kind of stumbles into a house, and I kind of thought he was at the Manson house. But that's his house, right?
Yeah, I mean, they think they make that clear because their bedroom is very iconic, where it's got like the panels that are changing colors.
I don't know if I saw the bedroom in
you
that
can see it in the background when when she's like hung up, like it's the background of that whole scene.
It's just kind of like when he comes out of the what's it called, like the Hellraiser like biker gangs like lair or whatever. When he comes out of there, I don't know if it was on purpose, but it just looks exactly like Mandy and Red's apartment again. It's almost like a duplicate of their kitchen.
Okay, it's a house. They're homeowners. They don't rent apartments. Okay, give them more credit.
Okay. And
he's a logger. He's making that union money.
I don't know. It looked exactly the same, and like to the point where I was almost like, oh, have these bikers like taken over their house and like trashed it and like now watching porn on this guy's TV, like kind of thing.
That was actually another funny his like sharp dick.
Right. But it was just kind of like, I don't know. I like the set production looked so like the same thing over and over and over again that I was just kind of like, I was like, I don't know how he got back to his house, and I don't know if this house looks different. I don't know.
I think they probably could have done more with color, like, having different colors represent like a little more distinguished, but it was mostly just a red wash over like everything.
Right.
But I didn't have that problem, I have to say.
It definitely didn't distract me from the movie. It was just like moments of confusion where I was just kind of like, oh, are they in his house? Or or just kind of like, oh, that's weird that he went into the Manson house after they burned.
I do think they didn't do the greatest job of establishing place for the Manson cult's house. Because like when we see it burning down at the end, that was the first time that I was like, oh, that weird pointy thing that we looked at before was the building that they live in. Like, it took me until the movie was over to realize that was what they were living in.
Yeah.
Because you could just kind of see like a house with a lot of windows as their house. Yeah, I didn't realize it was a little confusing. But yeah, again, where like I wanted to I was watching this movie with Sabri, and she did not like this movie at all. This
movie is definitely an acquired taste.
At the end, she was like, "Did you like that?" Like kind of like thing. But I could tell even she was kind of like yearning for like some sort of twist in this movie where like he's killing one of the last of like the bikers or whatever, and he says like, oh, like she burned bright or something. And like when he's talking about Mandy, which I was kind of like, oh, it's like a really specific detail about her death and you weren't there. That's kind of weird. But also Sabri was like, did she say she's still alive? And I was just like, no, she didn't say that.
Yeah.
I was
Wait,
like,
the demon said that? I thought that was the one bald brother dude.
it was the
bald brother dude said she burns brightly, but the demon guy kept saying like she still burns. She
Yeah,
still
yeah,
burns,
she still
she
burns.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
He was
Okay,
standing
okay.
out by the fire after he killed the other two. And yeah, he says she still burns. And then Sabri's like, did he say she's still alive? Like, and I was
Yeah.
like, no. And she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
feel like
let's-
there's a lot of like just like threads that are laid down in this movie, where they're like almost like Chekhov's like gun, and they don't end up going off. Like I think not showing Mandy's actual face while she's burning is sort of a gun like that. And I think that maybe just be budgetary reasons. Like it's probably harder to
Right. It's
I guess the
replicate
one
that.
it's a lot easier to burn him
The
back.
one
than-
connection to that is where she was talking about how her dad had the starlings in the bag.
Yeah.
And she could see that something was in the bag moving, and that's kind of where I guess loosely where that imagery came from with her in the bag. But with a movie this graphically violent,
Right.
it is a weird choice that they just didn't show her burning at all.
Yeah.
Just the whole bag.
And then like I do really like the one scene where he goes to meet the chemist who's like creating the LSD.
Oh, yeah.
I love the fact that like that guy is just reading his thoughts and Nicolas Cage isn't actually like saying anything. And then he has the one part where he's like, oh, you're absolutely right. And then he lets the cage open and the tiger goes free. And I was waiting for there to be a scene later where the tiger came back and like mauled one of the fucking, like I thought that was going to be the big sort of like destruction scene where, you know, maybe the tiger would kill Jeremiah or something like that. But it was just kind of the tiger went free and never came back.
Instead, they just shoot like the tiger in front of a green screen.
Like the
it's
metal
so
album.
weird.
There's a lot. There's so many screenshots from this movie that could be like a metal album cover, which I do love about it. But I just wish like if you're gonna let the tiger out, let it come back at some point. It should like even if you just have it walk across the screen at the end.
It's just
or
kind of
something,
like also
I
Nicolas
guess-
Cage spares the one woman,
the one girl. Yeah.
and I was just kind of like, oh, she's gonna come back and fuck him over, and then we just never see.
I thought she was
again.
going to come back and save. That's another loose. I thought she was going to come back and save him because like they established like while the body's burning, they're showing all the reaction shots, and I do like this seeing all the different reactions all the people are having. Like the one guy's like doing like a finger gun, the one guy's like laughing maniacally. The one older lady who like brought the wasp out at one point, she's like smiling. But then they cut to like this girl and she's kind of got this like disgusted look on her face where, you know, you could tell she's having second thoughts about this cult, and Nicolas Cage's character can obviously tell that and lets her go free. And I thought that he was going to be like in a compromising situation towards the end where like, you know, Jeremiah had the upper hand or something. And like this girl was going to come back and, you know, smack Jeremiah in the head or something. There's so many things where I thought they were setting up for some like really epic finale. And
They do like a Russian roulette kind of thing too to prove her love in front of Nicolas Cage too. And I
Yeah.
kind of thought something like that was going to come back too.
yeah, I thought it was a little anticlimactic at the end with him just crushing Jeremiah's head. Like, could they not think of something more poetic?
Oh, I think actually the most poetic line happens in that, I'll suck your cock, man.
I do. I do
Yeah,
like
I
that
do
that
like
part
that.
of it, but like I just
That is poetry.
I'll fucking blow you, man.
I'll blow you. No, you bow to me. But I do want to say there are some gnarly ass kills in this fucking movie,
Oh yeah.
and that is why
they were gnarly in a way that I enjoy because it's like gnarly in a like it's so cartoony.
yeah.
That, like an example of a movie from when you were on the podcast before in Green Room, like the scene where he's getting his arm like sawed open when he sticks it through the door to try and stop it. Like they make it look so real that it made me feel sick. watching that. Whereas all the violence in this is like arguably more gratuitous, but it's made to look so like ridiculous that like it doesn't feel real, so I don't get that like visceral reaction from it, and it makes you sort of allowed to like enjoy it in a way. Right. Like when he sticks like the axe that he like forges himself, which I love the scene of him like just forging this crazy looking axe. Like,
oh god, that could have been a Metallica music video.
But when he like sticks it through the one like Brother Swan's like throat, it like he bleeds like a ridiculous amount for like just putting it through the back of someone's throat, where there's not like, it's not like he's hitting like any like actual like arteries going through the back of someone's mouth, you know, but like it's like spurting like blood like everywhere, and it can't stop like pouring. Like when they make it that over the top and like cartoony, like something in our brain doesn't go like, oh, that's real, you know, like it doesn't switch on in that way. And I feel like it allows me to enjoy gratuitous violence in that way, whereas if it looked more real, I'd have the reaction that I had with like Hostel or with like Green Room, where I was just kind of like, nope, too real. There's something in my human brain that's going like, fuck that, I can't watch this. And makes me feel
that's
sick.
why I enjoy this movie so much, because it does, it allows me to just, you know, watch these fucking awesome kills and not feel sick. It is a more cartoony movie, and I mean, there are straight up animated sequences.
Yeah, like even as much as I wanted there to be a more poetic final kill for like Jeremiah, I did think that was a cool sort. I just wish it had been for one of the other less important members of the cult. But like crushing his head, like it reminds me of like something from like Temple of Doom or something that, like, which also works too because it's got like this whole 80s aesthetic going for it in the movie as well.
One of my favorite scenes, or I think the favorite scene, which I wasn't expecting, but I think also because maybe, you know, I had seen the trailer and everything, and I had kind of, the trailer is kind of like this highlight reel of all the cool things that happen in this movie. But my favorite scene, like the thing that got me as amped as the trailer in this movie, was when Nicolas Cage goes in the bathroom and he kind of fucking just, he takes out like this gigantic bottle of vodka where like he's turned down a beer when he's in the helicopter. He's obviously like a man who's maybe had an alcohol abuse problem in the past, or he's just a man who doesn't need alcohol because he's got everything he needs. But he goes in the fucking bathroom and he takes out like this gigantic like something you would see in a club, like gigantic bottle of like Grey Goose, like that kind of size.
Bottle service bottles.
Right, yeah. And he's fucking like pounding it, like, and then he's pouring it all over his arms, and he's going crazy. And like this is something they're talking about in Red Letter Media, but they were just kind of like comparing it to the scene in Apocalypse Now where they like actually get him like drunk and he's like fucking punching the mirror and rolling all over the bed and everything. And it's just kind of like, there's also like just this long camera scene where you can tell there's like a hesitation in like the cameraman's just like, kind of like he starts zooming in and then he kind of like is like, I guess I should zoom out. Like you can tell like Nicolas Cage is just doing whatever the fuck he wants. In that scene. And I think that's why that's so, like, it's just so, like, not coordinated or anything. It's just a fucking man losing his shit. Yeah. And he's just in, like, this tiger sweater and tighty whities. And he's just like, like, he's just, like, fucking screaming like a crazy
man. It is great.
Man.
Like, I mean, like, as much as there's so...
It's the only time that I feel like they let him, like, really be Nick Cage. Like,
There's such little dialogue in this movie, like... If this movie had any aspirations of like Oscar hopes, which are such a long shot at this point because it barely got any like real reception from anyone. But like if you were going to submit something for an Oscar scene for Nick, it's that scene.
It's that scene,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something like that's when like people like rave about his performance. I'm like, well, for like 90% of the movie, he doesn't really have to do a lot, but for that like one scene, you're like, okay, yeah, that's why I like Nick Cage as an actor. And that's why definitely. I'm going to stick by him through all these awful movies he's doing to pay back his tax debts. Because eventually he's going to get back to being able to pick the movies he really cares about, and not like he did like a bunch of like straight to DVD movies like that nobody even knows about.
Oh, tons of them. Yeah.
The past like 10 years. Like it's ridiculous.
He has to stop buying haunted houses. That's I'm pretty sure he owns that one big haunted house in Louisiana where that woman killed all the slaves.
Ugh.
And that set him back millions of dollars because he can't sell the property and he didn't see a ghost.
Oh.
I remember that's it might not have been that specific, but I'm pretty sure it was that one. But yeah, I just want to talk about this one scene. That's where he could probably get a stealth kill on this one Colts member with his axe, but he decides, no, I'm fucking Nicolas Cage, and I see a chainsaw. I'm going to throw away the axe so I can use the chainsaw to get into a chainsaw duel with this one cult member. We need to make a scene out of that.
I mean, it is a great scene. There's a lot about this, like a lot of things that I appreciate about this movie are like counterintuitive to my instincts as a film critic or a filmmaker, or like it doesn't seem like it should be a good decision to make. But everything about this movie is just like, what's the most fucking metal thing that we can do? Like literally everything about this movie is metal imagery, and like even like Johan Johansson's score, who like made like this incredibly beautiful score for like Arrival that's just like all like symphony and orchestra and piano and just traditional instruments. But like his score for this is literally just like just like these big droning guitars. Like it's not even like traditional like guitar licks and stuff like that. It's a really cool creative score, but it's very fucking metal.
Right.
Just like everything about this movie is like, what's the most metal thing we can do through the images, through the themes, through like the, you know, like characters, and just everything is fucking metal about this movie. And that's counterintuitive to making a good movie, I think, but it fucking works for some reason.
I love how like regular acid isn't enough for this movie. They had to make
wasp
super
acid.
demonic mess. Which I love that when we're going back to the beginning where the fucking the bald brother uses the Ocarina of Time to summon the demons, and they just take that big jar of acid and chugs it.
Yeah, the one just chugs it.
Yeah,
and then Nicolas Cage takes like later a tiny like taste of it. Yeah,
like they make a big thing out of it.
Yeah.
But I do like that too, because they literally explain that as part of their character, where they had a bad batch of LSD and now they're just fucked up. Yeah, like nothing is enough for them, and they're just pure pleasure hedonistic seekers. A scene I don't really like is with Carruthers, the guy that he gets like the bow from and the weapons from.
Oh,
like,
yeah, I'm not crazy.
The dude from Predator?
Yeah, the guy in Predator gets his head sliced open.
Like I feel like that actor is just getting so old now that he can't even like get like the right like tone for his voice now. Like you know, he used to be the kind of guy that would have like the deep kind of gritty voice, and now he just sounds really weak and frail. And it was more just like one of those like cameos where it's like, oh, it's the guy from Predator type thing, rather than being maybe necessarily the best person for that role. And then that person is not in this movie after that at all.
Yeah.
Like again, there's so much in this movie that's just forward without thinking about like, do we have to pick up any of that shit that we dropped back there like earlier in the movie? You know, like any of these hints we dropped or themes we dropped. It just keeps moving forward. It just didn't seem like a movie with a whole lot of forethought to it, story-wise.
Yeah. Right.
Like it just it seems like a template for them to create this theme and this ambiance and this feeling of metal and gore and just crazy excess, which I don't hate. I enjoy that a lot. I just, if I were going to make this a perfect movie, I feel like it needs more of a message to it or a point. Right. Other than just being the revenge sort of archetype story that we've seen a million times before.
I do like this kind of through line of just people wanting to be loved, or people who are in need of love. I think that has a lot to do with the cult. I think that has a lot to do with Nicolas Cage. I think that has a lot to do with like the cult leader. It's just everybody is in search of this kind of like love, you know, and like Nicolas Cage has found that kind of, and this guy wants that because you know, and like everybody in this cult wants that too. Yeah, and it's also kind of like I love the look of the actress who plays Mandy, even though I think
Andrea Riseborough.
Yeah, Mike in Red Letter Media was like, "Who is the director's girlfriend?" Which made me crack up. But no, she's really super like unique looking. I love like how like one of her eyes is kind of bigger than the other.
I don't know if she's done horror movies before, but she should.
No, definitely.
She has like a creepy looking face.
Yeah, and
while still having like an aesthetically like
she also has
face.
like this kind of like scar, like you know, like they add like this kind of scar over her one eye, and that's like bigger or smaller than the other. And I think that's what like the cult leader sees, like, for lack of, you know, the metaphor or whatever, like kind of this wounded bird that he thinks he can convince to be in the cult because he's attracted to the weaker kind of person, you know, like it's just kind of, and I can kind of understand that through line, but I don't totally know what the film wants to say when it ends, and like Nick Cage is kind of like driving off into the distance, and we see like Saturn and Jupiter in the background, which they talk about at the beginning, or I don't really know a lot of the purpose of the beginning, kind of, but I can understand a lot of what's going on with the cult and everything.
Yeah, it feels like it's missing a couple layers. Like I think one of my favorite like revenge type movies is Man on Fire with Denzel Washington.
Right.
And like it's not like an absolutely perfect movie, and it's not altogether incredibly deep, but I feel like it does have more to say about, you know, revenge itself, and about interpersonal relationships, and just even like politically, it's got a whole message about sort of the government of South America, and countries down there. Whereas this, I felt like it has a bunch of stuff in it, you know, about like drug use and cults and religion and stuff like that. But I feel like it didn't really know how to say anything about any of those topics.
I don't even really know what it wanted to say about drug use either.
Yeah.
Because like he's
someone who's abstaining from stuff, and then he starts taking acid.
He's abstaining from stuff. She's smoking weed while she's drawing, or smoking something, and then
she's doing work. This movie is about drugs make you productive.
Right?
He starts taking drugs. He starts fucking getting work on revenge.
Yeah.
It didn't go to that deeper level that I would want like a perfect movie to go to. You know, even though like technically this is a very well-made movie apart from like those two shots that I talked about. It didn't really touch me emotionally on any real deep level.
It's such a great looking film though. If we can talk about that. It's definitely
amazing.
The better looking films that I've seen this year. And I'm 100% behind it, but I'm also 100% behind like the imagery that the trailer presents more than the actual film presents, which I'm going to go back to that. It's just, I love trailers. I love watching trailers, and sometimes I'm let down. Sometimes the person who cuts the trailer does a better job than the director and the person who cuts the movie, honestly. And I think this is one of those examples.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised this wasn't a graphic novel adaptation or anything.
Oh yeah, same. Yeah.
Because this really has a graphic novel vibe to it, especially with the pacing, the just imagery, using like shots versus panels of one color specifically.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love there's so many aspects of this movie that I love too. It's just kind of I wish I wish there was less of that kind of like when he goes to the guy from Predator's trailer and he's just kind of like, yeah, those like people that like went into your house that look like fucking like demons. Those are actually just guys on bad acid trips. I wish that detail wasn't in there, because then they become these like ultra high like mythical creatures kind of that you do summon with the fucking ocarina. It's just like it made so much more sense when I was like kind of like, oh, these fucking demons who live amongst us kind of, instead of like they're just guys on acid trips who I guess have superpowers, and like
they almost would have done better to explain less and have less dialogue in this movie. Like they're kind of stuck in between. Like for most of it, it's like this visual movie that's it's invoking like metal imagery, but also mostly like fairy tale imagery. Like you can't not compare this movie to like a fairy tale. In a lot of aspects of it. But then, like that trailer scene like you're talking about, like there's just a little too much shown and explained there, and it kind of pulls you out of that fairy tale universe that they're trying to build for a bit of this movie. It also, again, like I would have loved if there was a happy ending to this movie, because that would have fit really nicely with like the fairy tale theme, or to have like
what are you talking about?
What was fairy tale-esque about this movie?
What's that?
What was like what did you see that was fairy tale-esque about this
them
movie?
Like living in like a house like in the woods, like summoning the creatures with like a horn and stuff like that. I don't know, like I think there's just
the IMDb description literally just does say the enchanted lives of a couple in a secluded forest.
Yeah, like
enchanted, like it does.
I think it's more so just like the feeling and the vibe that they get across is like fairy tale like.
I would say it's more Norse mythology
and
fairy tale. Just like with the imagery of the demons, with the axe, the summoning. You can almost like equivalate the bikers to the Wild Hunt in Norse mythology, which is like this rad group of demons that ride around in horses. Just they get summoned and go kill whatever. And that would also, relate it to, because the metal scene, particularly in the 80s, was all about this Norse mythology.
It's not any specific fairy tale or myth that I'm like attributing it to. It just, there's something about it that, because it's not detail specific and it's just kind of like vague and feeling driven, where it's like, oh, there was this happy couple that lived a perfect life in the woods, and then this evil gang kidnapped the wife and burned her in front of the husband, and then he sought down every single one of them and murdered them. Like it's not like the like children's fairy tales that we tell our kids, but more like the original fairy tales like that those are sort of drawn from, like those
cool
really,
ones,
the real gruesome tales,
right,
of shit, where it's just kind of, I guess just because it's not detail specific, and it's not, I don't really know anything about Red Miller. I don't really know anything about Mandy. I think we do maybe get a little bit more about the cult, which I don't mind. I really like learning about Jeremiah's characteristics. And the actor who plays him is pretty great. I recognize him from something, and I can't put my fucking finger on it. I keep meaning to look it up.
The director wanted Nicolas Cage to be Jeremiah originally.
Really?
Yeah, because he was apparently the original script was about youth versus old, and Jeremiah was supposed to be like a cult leader from a different time. But then Nicolas Cage was like, "No, I want to be Red," and they didn't talk for a year until Elijah Wood became part of the production, and he spoke with Nicolas Cage and got him back on board and got him to be Red. They just took this different angle with it.
Linus Roche is the guy who plays Jeremiah Sand. I'm trying to see what I recognize him from, because I swear to God I've seen him in something else from like the 90s that he's really coming up from. Anyway, keep talking. Somebody else.
I do love the like the whole scene where even though Mandy is on like,
this is not what I recognized him from, but he's Bruce Wayne's father in Batman Begins.
I did see that.
Yes. The guy who played Joe Chill, I think, is one of the cult people too.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
So the guy who shot Bruce Wayne's dad is now his like underling.
And his cult, yeah.
I do love the scene where Mandy is like, they put her under a bunch of hallucinogenics, and then he plays her kind of like, when he's like, do you like the Carpenters? And she's like, huh? And he's like, this is like the Carpenters except better. And like, she is like laughing at the fact that it is just like a song that he wrote about him, and it's just like a hilarious
she's like laughing at that, and
right?
she's
Yeah,
obviously kind of like laughing at like his dick too, and it's like
right,
he's
yeah,
trying to present himself in this like vulnerable state, and she just kind of like totally breaks the illusion that he's trying to create.
You can't compete with that Nick Cage dick.
and then he burns her alive.
It is like, so. Have you guys ever listened to Charles Manson's music?
No.
It's very similar to what they presented in this movie, where it's all happy-go-lucky, but oh wait, they're murdering an innocent woman not too long after.
Yeah.
In Manson's case, a pregnant woman. But we won't get.
I almost wanted more of the like interpersonal relationships in the cult, because I really loved the first scene with Jeremiah Sand where the one older lady is like coming up to him, and he's just like treating her like a piece of shit, and then he's like, oh, get like Brother Swan, and then he's like a little bit more like calm with him, like just like sort of like the little pieces of drama between the members of the cult I thought was really interesting in this movie. It's also like the most talking we get in this movie, so maybe I'm just drawn to it for that reason. Because it's not a bad script at all. There's just so little of it. It's so threadbare because it's just a lot of like, well, and then Nick Cage will do whatever he wants here in this scene, and just kind of fill it out with, you know, stage motions.
Can we talk about how the old lady at the end kind of reveals, oh yeah, Jeremiah says I was his favorite lover. My body is like an ocean of pleasure, or whatever she says, like waves or something.
Right. Yeah.
Honestly, so I guess my mind at the time was in revenge movie mode, which usually I think a great example of an awesome revenge movie is Machete. And I remember there's a point where Machete meets his enemy's like wife and daughter and ends up having sex with both of them.
Yeah.
So I was like fully prepared to have this Nicolas Cage old lady drawn out sex scene.
Oh man, he's the only one for him.
No, I was I think that's almost what the movie wanted to make you think too. That they were gonna have sex. Yeah.
I was ready for it.
That is my favorite scene in Machete, though. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Lindsay Lohan was one of them too. In like full cracked out, you know, buying drugs on that Parent Trap money, Lindsay Lohan.
All right, you guys ready to get in some ratings for this movie?
Show some fingers.
All right.
Yeah, I'm ready to finger.
On review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 93% based on 176 reviews and an average rating of 7.6 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads, Mandy's gonzo violence is fueled by a gripping performance by Nicolas Cage and anchored with palpable emotion conveyed between his volcanic outbursts. Excuse me.
This is a weird part of the description.
There's stage directions in the IMDb description. It says burp.
Reader burps.
Okay. Volunteers to go first?
I don't know where to fall on this, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not done collecting my thoughts.
All right, let me go first. I don't have a whole lot else to say. I think I've expressed most of how I feel about this movie. I think it's pretty fantastic, but also lacking in some areas. Where, I mean, obviously visually it looks amazing. I think the soundtrack is great and inventive, and as much as I would like want to criticize it for this like slow, droning nature of the movie, that is also part of its appeal and part of why I ended up loving the movie. And I think the performances are great. The script, when there is a script that involves human dialogue, is great. I just wish they would have been a little bit more thoughtful about trying to make it feel more cohesive and giving more a theme to this movie. Bringing back elements that were introduced just to make it feel more rounded, I think could have made this like movie of the year, like my top movie of the year. But without all that, it's still awesome. I'm gonna land on 4 fingers for it. Like it's pretty close to being one of the best movies I saw this year, but I can't put it above Hereditary or some of the other movies I really enjoyed. Just because I don't think it touched me in a way that I wanted to be touched.
Nice.
I dig it. Okay, for me, I didn't see the trailer going into this movie. The only thing I knew about it was a Cheddar Goblin was involved. Who apparently the guy who directed that sequence is the guy who
Too Many Cooks.
did Too Many Cooks on Adult Swim, which makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely the target audience for this movie.
Definitely. This is definitely the dark. It's almost like, I mean, if it was funnier, I could see this movie being on Adult Swim because it's just that weird surrealism,
right?
Ultra violent. I agree that the beginning was very slow. My girlfriend fell asleep while we were watching it. I almost was nodding off. But when it gets started, I'm in. When he's ripping his hand off of from being nailed down and, killing all the fucked up acid demons. I was just ready for more. And then when he got the chainsaw to have a chainsaw fight, even though it was like almost like a penis allegory where the other guy's chainsaw was just way bigger than his. But you know what? It's not about size, it's how you use it. And the tiny chainsaw prevails. I love the I mean, if you follow me on any social media site, I've been posting my favorite shot of the year is at the end after he got his revenge. Nicolas Cage is sitting in his car covered in blood and he sees an apparition of Mandy and I guess goes back to a little flashback where they're both at a party and I interpret it as them meeting for the first time.
Yeah.
But he gives this like crazy manic smile just covered in blood. If you're watching the YouTube, you'll that's the background right now. But that is probably my favorite shot of any movie this year. I think I'm gonna be with you, Mike. I'm gonna land on 4 stars or 4 fingers. I'm so sorry.
Fingers.
I'm so sorry.
God damn it.
Oh, sounds like we're breaking up on the call with Nick.
Hey, we're gonna let you go, bud. But hey, no.
This is why you're not on fucking Rotten Tomatoes yet. Use fingers instead of stars. They don't know how to interpret that with their Rotten Tomatoes algorithms. 4 fingers for me. I think what it does well, it does really fucking well, and it's one of those movies I suggest. Don't look for anything deeper. Have a few beers and enjoy.
Drop some acid.
Right.
Oh God, I can't even imagine. Like just even smoking weed and watching this movie would just cause all sorts of panics.
It would seem even slower.
I'd be like, oh man,
oh no.
Did we watch season 1 of Mandy? No, that was just one movie. Oh.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just still collecting my thoughts. It was hard just because I think I built up so much anticipation in my head about this movie that when I saw it, it was just kind of a little underwhelming. Kind of. I still do love this movie. This is one of the best looking movies of the year. Like I said, I feel like everything I'm gonna say I've already said. Yeah, I do wish I feel like something that could have completed this movie is a kind of more meaningful through line or plot or really anything that made it more than just a kind of revenge movie that was just, these guys killed my girlfriend and now I'm going to kill everybody. I love the whole aesthetic. I kind of almost wish they leaned more into the kind of 80s metal aesthetic than they already did. Even with the cult, I kind of thought was like a little off of the mark of what the aesthetic of what this movie would be like. I still love the cult. The cult was like one of the best parts of this movie. But yeah, I feel like everything I've said, I've already said before, or everything I've wanted to say, I've already said before. I think I'm going to leave this movie at 3.5 fingers. I still love it. It's obviously above average. But I think it, I don't know. It comes in just under a 4-finger movie for me. Mm-hmm. So I gotta leave it at 3.5.
So that'll come to 3.83 repeating, which will round down to 3.5 fingers officially for us here at the podcast.
Sorry, fellas.
Just had to fuck it up, Joe.
We could have had 4 fingers. That would have been fingers.
4 fingers.
4 fingers.
How many fingers am I holding up the podcast?
How many tingles do I get from your finger?
I forget how to talk well on Skype.
Oh boy. All right. So let's get some last plugs in here on the podcast. Nick, let's plug Twitch. Where can people find that again?
Just twitch.tv/Tumble Loves You. Been playing a lot of Fallout 4. I modded it so Bob Ross is my moon in game. And it brings me happy. The mod is called, I'm gonna plug this mod too because I really like it. It's called Happy Little Moon. You can find that on Fallout 4 Nexus. I also, you know what? I want to plug. I'm gonna plug another movie. I saw The Raid Redemption earlier today, and it's a fantastic movie. So
what is that?
Plug that too. It's an old movie. Well, 2011. You can't review it.
Okay. Damn it! You're not allowed.
You cannot touch this movie.
You're forbidden. All right, so check that out for Nick for sure. For us, you can find everything at howmanyfingerspodcast.com. And as we've been plugging all night, all these past few episodes, if you haven't been listening to our intros, if you've been skipping over those, you naughty boy, we have a new video series that launched on our YouTube 2 weeks ago called Goldfingers. It's a data-driven Oscar prediction video series. I'm going to be taking you beat by beat through the award season using precursor awards and news and trends and a little bit of my own intuition to predict the nominations and ultimately the winners for the 91st Academy Awards. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, definitely head to our YouTube and just search How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up on YouTube, or go to howmanyfingerspodcast.com. There should be a direct link to our YouTube there, and subscribe, and you won't miss an episode. It'll be a good time. Check out a review of Bohemian Rhapsody last week, just Joe and I, and our review of First Man next week, just Joe and I.
Just the boys.
Just the boys, just hanging out.
Just guys being dudes.
Just guys What's being better? Dudes. Oh, Vine. Oh, Vine famous.
Oh, yeah. Great
don't
podcast.
Don't search that.
Can we plug Vine Famous, the podcast? It's... The best part is when we just talk numbers for a half hour.
The best part is when we talked about porn for half an hour.
The best part is when we talk about Heineken, the company.
Mr. Heineken. Oh, boy. All right. Well, check out all of that, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for coming on for your 7th time, Nick.
You're welcome. I'm glad this was very planned in advance.
This was not last minute because all of our guests dropped.
This is not a
That's not why we're doing it over Skype when you're going to be on in person in a couple of weeks. All right. We'll see you guys later. Goodbye.
Later. Bye.